worldly tools and spiritual tools at times can look very similar. Worldly tools and spiritual tools can at times look very similar. I was listening to this guy on YouTube named Pat Conkey, and he was talking about how he ultimately became challenged when he was using tactics and tools in worship, and how that influenced people to have a perceived spiritual experience. And it's interesting because when you study marketing, when you study, I always mention the book Propaganda by Edward Bernays, written back in, I think, 1929, right? When you recognize and read and understand what Robert Greene in the 48 Laws of Power he emphasized, and you understand that there are various tools and tactics that can be utilized to influence people, right? I mean, you can go back to the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? Like there's so many things that are worldly tactics and tools that people utilize. But if you don't have a level of discernment, sometimes you can misappropriate something that's a marketing tool or a tool for influence as something that's spiritual. And the challenge at times is the fact that people in positions of leadership understand how to use tools and tactics. And sometimes it's a Holy Spirit led spiritual thing, but then sometimes it is a worldly tactic or a tool that's being used. This is why we have to be so, layered up in our understanding of, the Bible, and have conversations and connection and community with people to kind of help us get understanding. Because if you don't have discernment, sometimes you are being influenced by something that you think is supposed to be Holy Spirit, but the reality is this is a musical chord that people know resonates with you in this genre. Like even in music, like what's interesting, you hear vibrations and all of that, but then there are various chords in music that are correlated with genres of music. Like you have various chords that, death metal and like the hard rock that are kind of have that Ozzy Osbourne type feel to it, right? But there are chords that bring that up, right? Just like there are chords that speak to gospel music. Like you can hear the first chord progression in some music, and you'll know what type of song that is before anybody even sings, or even if you're not in a particular setting, you can hear those chords. You're like, oh, that's gospel. Oh, that's heavy metal, or oh, that's this, or that's that. It's interesting. Some things are spiritual. Some things are people utilizing tools to generate an emotional response. Here, Pat Conkey here talk about his experience, and then we'll jump back into it.
For this, as somebody who led worship for 6 years full time, and then many years after that, I had to learn the subtle difference between facilitating a congregation's worship and manipulating the congregation. And it was really unsettling to me when I started to figure out that if I did certain, for instance, when I'm playing guitar, and leading the band, certain chord changes, or if I was playing the drums that day, if I hit the drums in a certain way at a certain time, invariably people would come up to me and they would say that they felt the Spirit move. And that was really disturbing to me. And it actually had an effect on me. And it kind of turned me into a really boring worship leader who would never get hired at most mega churches. So,
See, he emphasized and he showed that, him being a pastor, he understands that some things he was spiritually led, but other things were just chord progressions. And he had to have a level of discernment to know that he was influencing or manipulating, or he was being led by the Spirit. And the thing that's interesting about it is, like, I think there are people in power that understand these tools. And this is why we have to be very, not cautious, but very discerning. I use that word a lot, very discerning on who we elevate into leadership, because everybody doesn't have the right intentions. Everybody's not being led by the right things. Some people really do understand the tools of manipulation, and they pull those levers to get what they want, or to get what, they feel is best, which may or may not be best for all those that they are charged with leading. There was a clip that from, I think, Derek Sivers from years ago, and he had this, it was this clip, it was powerful. It was this dude that was like dancing. It looked like it was like a Woodstock type, event, but this dude was just kind of grooving. He was on his own world, right? And then after a while, somebody joined in, and then somebody else joined in. And then next thing you know, this whole crowd was just kind of geeking out, like this dude by himself was geeking out. The whole point to the story was, it only takes one follower to turn a lone nut into a leader. It's the first follower turns the lone nut into a leader. So long story short, we have to be careful with who we start to follow and who we elevate into leadership, because that person who did that turns a lone nut at times into a leader. And if we put the wrong people in leadership, especially people who understand the tools and the levers to pull for manipulation, those who are not in positions of influence or power are vulnerable, and they can get manipulated. And so yeah, this was just an interesting perspective, and I love to get your thoughts on that. Like, when you know how to get what you want, do you exercise that ability, right? Is that something that you do, and what's motivating you to do so? Like, to me, this just made me think. I wanted to share this because, again, I'm all about helping or inspiring you to become the quarterback of your mindset, but you have to be aware of some of the influences that, in essence, curate and cultivate your mindset. Remember, your mindset is made up of five things: your beliefs, your experiences, your relationships, your perceptions, and your perspective. So the stories you tell yourself and how you view yourself. Those are the five things that ultimately cultivate your mindset. And the people around you, your relationships, so they matter, right? So what relationships are influencing you and influencing your mindset and your thinking? What are your thoughts? Drop them in the comments. And yeah, I just love to get your thoughts on this. And as always, y'all like, subscribe, share this thing out, leave your comments. And until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace.